So hi, I haven't spoken about the Charlie Kirk murder until now because we didn't know anything. And since my channel was created not to report the news but to make sense of it, I felt like the only responsible thing to do was to wait until there was more information. It now appears that the person who shot and killed right-wing political commentator Charlie Kirk was like the majority of shooters in America, a young white male from a conservative pro-gun religious background. After being told for 2 straight days that the left had declared war on America, that the shooter was most likely trans, or in Congresswoman Nancy Mace's words, pro-tranny, after the Wall Street Journal published an article they had to later walk back that the bullets had a pro-trans message because it turned out to be just the markings of one of the world's biggest ammunition factories, they were wrong. We still don't know the motivation for the killing, but we will find out more in the coming days. But here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to put it in context, because I think the biggest takeaways we have right now are the following. We have a gun problem in America. People who are unhappy have easy access to high-powered firearms to take their unhappiness out on others. The 2 children who were shot in school the same day Kirk died were shot by a 16-year-old who had been radicalized online by white supremacist groups and had easy access to a handgun. After years of being told by our own law enforcement, including the FBI, that the majority of domestic terrorism is perpetrated by white extremist groups who are the greatest threat to our national security, we have done absolutely nothing but allow those groups to flourish and grow. Charlie Kirk himself was one of the people who grew that movement. You only need to talk to the Black women and minority groups and marginalized groups or immigrants he personally targeted to get a first-hand account. Or look back on any of his speeches or comments or debates to see that white Christian misogynistic narrative that he was preaching. Now, that does not mean that Charlie Kirk deserved to be shot. No one deserves to die in such a violent way. But we should question why this one death resonated so strongly with the same people who know school children die in the same horrific way every day but don't care. I want you to take what happened to Charlie Kirk and imagine that as a 6-year-old boy in class, or a 70-year-old grandmother at the grocery store, or a mother of 4 at Walmart. What is the difference? Is it that you saw it happen? That he felt like one of yours? That the event was so visceral and vicious that it shook you up? I understand that. But then let's take that as a lesson. That this kind of violence should be unacceptable to our country, and we should be doing everything we can to stop it. And speaking of stopping it, everyone from our president to members of Congress to media outlets and personalities chose to blame this event without evidence on their political opposition. Not just for one person's actions, but for violence and radicalization in general. It should feel ludicrous to blame one half of the country for a single person's actions. Not only that, but to demonize the political party who has done everything they can for decades to limit gun violence. The party who begged you to care about your fellow Americans being slaughtered at the movies or in churches or concerts or schools, but were met with nothing but thoughts and prayers and AR-15 lapel pins. How is it possible that the party of common sense gun legislation and the Office of Gun Violence Prevention could be the party being blamed for someone getting shot? And if we're talking about political violence, then we need to remind people that historically, it is the left who are the targets of political violence. It is the people who seek equality and change and justice and fairness who are most often assassinated. Everyone from Lincoln to JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X. Gabby Gifford was shot in the head on stage. Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman was executed with her husband and dog in their home this summer. And she was only one of 70 people on a list of Democratic lawmakers targeted for death. So I refuse to sit here while the Democrats and left are painted as the party of war. The Republican president himself just changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War and threatened to invade Chicago. It was right-wing agitators who stormed the U.S. Capitol looking for lawmakers to kidnap and kill. It is the right wing who spent the past 2 days creating a false narrative, blaming an entire group of people for a violent execution with no evidence. The right wing who is using another American family's tragedy with gun violence as an excuse to start a war they already wanted to start. So unlike everyone on the right who tried to capitalize on Kirk's death to spin some narrative to their own benefit, and everyone on the left who felt the need to lionize a man for free speech who did more damage with that speech in his lifetime than most people could ever dream of, I'm just going to stick with the facts. And the facts are this country has been deliberately divided and set on each other to the benefit of a small group of people in power, and we keep helping them. We are fighting each other when we should be putting all of our attention on them. The people crashing our economy and taking our healthcare and bankrupting our farms. The day Charlie Kirk died, the Republicans in the Senate voted not to release the Epstein files, something Kirk himself had called for them to do. But so many people don't even know that happened because their news and social media feeds were filled with a call to bring war and death to the Democrats. Sometimes things aren't as complicated as they seem. Ask yourself who benefits most from something and then see who tries to capitalize on it. The Democrats didn't do this terrible thing, but an entire political party and industry went into overdrive trying to make you think they did. Why? And what did we miss while we were dealing with that?